Hello, you're right. We find ourselves here again. Now, for those of you who remember lockdown resources in history from from the last lockdown, you'll know that or notice that I'm now doing them in a different place. And I'm coming to you from in front of my bookshelf just to prove that I'm big into history. I've got some of my history books behind me. Now, in these lockdown videos, I'm going to do a bit of a Joe Wicks, and I'm going to show you some different things that I've got behind me. And I'll do a different one for every video that I do to hopefully keep you interested. And I might even have these objects appearing in our quiz, which you will have to do at the end of this video. So it is really important that you also do the quiz, which will be set up as an assignment too. But my object for this week, and apologies if you're 8D, you've already seen this, but my object for this week is this. So this is a drawing that actually my granddad did for me on my 18th birthday, so longer ago now than I care to remember. And it's a copy of a ceremonial axe that was owned by King Agamemnon of Troy, or possibly King Xerxes. It was found in an archaeological dig, and I think about 1905, of Troy. Troy was an ancient Greek city, but it's not in Greece, just to be confusing. It's in modern day Turkey, which was part of ancient Greece. So that's Xerxes or Agamemnon's ceremonial axe, and it's my object for this week. I'm going to attempt now to put it behind me. Now, I did this earlier when I was doing a video for 8D, and it went horribly wrong, so here goes. Yeah, again, that was harder than I anticipated it being. Now, your lesson for this week is lesson 5 in your workbook. So I'm going to show it to you, or show you rather how you can get there first. You know how to get there, it's in your workbook. I'll start again. The first thing that you need to do is find in your history workbook lesson 5. And the lesson that you're looking for looks like this, okay? Or at least the quiz, it looks like this. That's the lesson that you're looking for. Now, you also are going to want to go at the start of the lesson onto Microsoft Teams. So you'll have far fewer teams than this. You're going to click on the Year 8 one on your Teams tab, which is on the side. Oh, hello. Sorry, Year 8. My dog has just come in to say hello. So she's very interested and wants to say hello to you. Hello. Yeah, look, you're on the screen. This is Mila. Mila is about 16 months old. So there you go. That's my dog. Maybe she might pop up in future lessons as well. Apologies if you hear her in the background. She's knocking around with her ball in the room. That's Mila. We'll start again. So let's go to Teams. So if you go on to Teams, you should be able to see that now. You're going to want to click on the Teams tab, which is along the side there, and click on History, Year 8. And then you're going to click on Assignments in the top, or you'll actually see it's come up as Assignments here. So click on Assignments at the top. And then you're going to click on this one that says 8B, 8C, 8F, Mr. Jones's group's Colonialism in Africa. Okay, click on that. And I'd suggest that the first thing that you do is read the instructions. So yours will look like this. You need to read the instructions. And as you will see, the instructions explain that there are 2 things that you need to load. The first thing you need to load is this, the Africa Stories V3, by clicking on it. And you can just click on it like that and it will load this up. This is something that you need to read later in the lesson. You might want to download it onto your own computer. So if you click on those 3 little dots on the right-hand side and click download, well, then you'll see that you can download it. And you don't have to have Word necessarily. It will download it onto an online platform. There you go. You can see mine hopefully downloading there. Okay, so it might be helpful for you to download it like that. I'm going to click close on this one. Bear with me 1 second because Mila is chewing something. I'm going to pause the video for a sec.
It's just a Lucozade bottle.
I'm told it's just a Lucozade bottle, so we'll leave her chewing it. Apologies if you can hear cracking in the background. That's Mila having fun with a Lucozade bottle. I'll start again. So I would really recommend that you read this before you start. If you're not sure about using Teams, there are also some instructional videos here at the bottom, which I'd really recommend that you watch. So you're going to need to click, as I said, on the Africa V3 stories. And again, you can download it by clicking on those three dots and clicking download. If you don't have Word, if you click actually download as PDF, so I'll show you that, then it will say this, and when it says your document ready, click download, and it will download it down here for you. If you click on that, like this, look. Oh, maybe it's going to do it. It will open up in a sec for you, a PDF version, okay? And that means that even if you haven't got Word, you can still use it, all right? You're going to go ahead and click close on that one, because you're also going to need this one. Now, the Empire Hexagon document, we've seen these before. You should be able to see it on screen now. We use this for the lesson on colonialism in Ireland and colonialism in the Caribbean as well. So we know how these work. We'll talk about it again later though. But this one you are going to need to do some work on. So you're going to open it like that. Then you're going to click this drop-down menu here that says Edit Document. And you're either going to edit on here, edit on Microsoft Teams if you don't have Word at home, just by clicking Edit like that. And it will open up a version of the document then, hopefully, that you can edit. In a second. Oh, that's not come out well, so I'll change that for you and put another one up in a sec, but it will be one that's editable. Or you can just click on Edit Document, Open in Desktop App. I'd do that if you've got your own version of Word. And as it says in the instructions, I'd really encourage you to print it out if you have got a printer and put it in your workbook, because that's going to be really useful for when we do homework and revision and your AFE and things like that, okay? Apologies, you can probably hear Mila destroying the Lucozade bottle in the background. So that's how I want you to use Teams. Okay, the lesson itself, as I've already said, we're on lesson 5. What did colonialism look like in Africa? Now, I'm just going to spend some time now going through this lesson with you. So the first thing you need to do is the quiz it. Tasks 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pause this video now and do that. It should take you about 2 to 3 minutes. Pause the video, 2 minutes, do the quiz it. Pause now. Okay, let's go through the answers to the quiz it. The correct definition for a famine. A famine is a shortage of food leading to hunger and starvation. A famine is a shortage of food leading to, that should say, hunger and starvation. Question 2. True or false? The Caribbean was the first place where the British used plantations. That is false. The first place that the British used plantations, as we know, was in Ireland. That is false. The first place plantations were used was in Ireland. 3. The correct definition for slave labour. It is forced work which is undertaken by slaves. Forced work undertaken by slaves. Now 4, how far was there a civilized mission in parts of the empire you've studied so far? There's no right or wrong answer to that. That's your call. But I think for me, I would have circled somewhere between 0 and 3, because actually, as we've seen, there wasn't really much of a civilizing mission. Callum Lawrence in 8C actually made a really good point earlier this week that even if there is actually in some ways, but it's only really for improving life of British people in the colonies. So I would argue, and I'm sure many of you would too, that we've not seen much of a civilizing mission so far. We'll pick that up again today when we look at Africa. Now, the first or the next thing I need you to do is look at this picture, and we're going to do an inference question. First, you're going to circle two things that you see in this picture, or you can underline things or circle in the writing underneath. Two, what might the British on the left-hand side of this picture think about themselves? And three, what might the British think about the Africans on the right-hand side? And fourthly, what can you infer about how the British believed they were helping Africa? Pause this video here and answer those questions. Pause the video, answer the questions. 2 minutes. Check it's on, we're all set. Once you have done that, the next thing you're actually going to do is go off and read this extract about the empire in Africa. Now, as you'll discover, it's not just about Britain in Africa. As you are reading, I need you to tick off the 6 things that we're testing for whether they existed in the British Empire or not. Controlled by Britain, so control from the government. Military power, a large army to control the indigenous native population. Migration, British people or people from other colonies moving to do jobs in the empire. A civilizing mission, Britain trying to make parts of their empire better. Rivalry with European nations, competing to control land, and Britain trying to stay number one, and making profit or money. So as you read, if you think you can tick those off, tick them. This should take you about 4 minutes. Pause the video here, read and tick. Okay, hopefully you've been able to read and tick off quite a few of these. Now, you should definitely, I think, have ticked off a rivalry with European nations, because clearly there is a rivalry here, as you can see also in the picture on the right-hand side of the screen, with other countries: France, Italy, Belgium, Germany, Portugal, and some others like Spain as well. So you should definitely have ticked off a rivalry with European nations. I think you should also have ticked off making profit, because Britain was trying to get precious metals like gold or precious objects like diamonds. And you could argue you could tick off the civilizing mission because of Christian missionaries, religious men, trying to spread Christianity across Africa. And therefore, you could also probably tick off migration because, of course, those missionaries came from Britain. Now, you might also argue you could tick off control from Britain because Britain is sending an army to take over these countries, and perhaps therefore military power, having a large army. In fact, maybe for the first time, we can tick off all of these things. It's our job to decide which are more or less important, though, in Africa than others, perhaps. The next thing you're going to do is the hexagon task. Now, we spoke about this at the start of the video, but just to be clear again, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. You're going to, at this point, need to go onto Microsoft Teams. You're going to go onto the assignment for this lesson, and you're going to click on Africa Stories V3, which will bring up the stories that you need to download. I would then click these 3 little dots in the top right-hand corner and click download as PDF if you don't have Word, or download if you do have Word, so that you've got them on your computer, and that way, or your device, and that way you can have them up in front of you whilst you are typing or writing. You're also, like we discussed at the start of the video, going to need to click on the Empire hexagon, and I will update this with a new one, because at the moment I know that this one isn't editable on Teams. But you're going to click Edit Document and either edit if you want to edit it in Teams if you don't have your own Word, or open in Desktop app if you do have Word, and then you can edit it on there, okay? If you do have Word and you have a printer, it would be a really good idea to print it out. Worst case scenario, if you can't do either of those things, then get your prep book out, draw the hexagon, which will also be on the screen properly in a second, and just record it in your prep book, okay? So again, worst case scenario, if you can't access this or can't work it out, then do the hexagon task in your prep book. In actual fact, it might be easier to do that anyway if you want to. Okay, so here's the hexagon again. And you can see it's the same as we've used before with Ireland and the Caribbean. We're going to do one story together, and then I'm going to leave you to go and do it on your own for 10 minutes. You can see on the board a cartoon for children from the 1930s showing the civilizing mission in Africa, or as they thought it was. The colonizers, that means the European people, in this case Italian, taking over the African kingdom, are shown feeding native Africans. Just look at this picture for a second and think about which of those 6 things that we've discussed might it link to. Now, clearly, this is a very, what we might say, derogatory source. It's one which shows Africa in a way that it certainly isn't in reality. It's perhaps, you might say, designed to suggest that Africa is underdeveloped and therefore needs Europe, which obviously was not the case in many senses. And we'll go on to study this later, this unit, when we look at African kingdoms. However, I think if it were me, I would be thinking, well, this links to a civilizing mission. This shows European people, in this case Italian, like I said, trying to improve one of their colonies, in this case in Africa, by feeding them with Western food. And you can see by perhaps the look of surprise on the faces of some of the children on the left-hand side that they're maybe not used to this, suggesting that the Europeans are helping them somehow. I think also in the European characters' faces, you can see almost like a father and motherly like idea that they're helping out, they're supporting these children. You can also see an Italian flag on the top of each of the African houses, which again might tell us that there's a rivalry with European nations here. There are different countries competing to take over land, in this case, Italy in Africa. So I think if it were me, I think it's mainly civilizing mission, but a bit rivalry with European nations. So I'm going to put it closer to the civilizing mission, but sort of up a bit towards rivalry, that's hard to say, rivalry with European nations. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So what, so what I would do is something like this. I would, he says, put it sort of here, I think. And like we practiced before, I'm going to write the date, 1930s, Italian cartoon shows colonizers feeding Africans who look primitive. Primitive means simple. And we've spoken about how that's perhaps not the case, but it's what they're trying to show, who look primitive. They they are helping them. And like I said, I'm going to put it sort of a little bit close to civilized mission, but I might put it with rivalry, sort of close to rivalry with European nations as well. And you know what, just to, because I can, I might just add an arrow going to this one and an arrow going to, where are we? And an arrow going to civilized mission, just because I can. And I want to make it really clear to me which ones I think is linked to. Okay, so that's what you're doing here. Again, we've done this before, so you're probably very, very happy. What I suggest, or what you need to do now, is go ahead and go and start to read some of these stories on Africa V3. You'll see there are lots and lots here. I would spend 10 minutes reading as many as you can. Spend 10 minutes now reading as many as you can and continue to record them like we've just discussed in the hexagon, in the empire hexagon. 10 minutes, pause the video. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a bit more of an idea of which of our 6, because we've already said they maybe all happen in Africa, which of our 6 are more or less important for colonialism, the empire in Africa. What I now need you to do, and again, we've done this before many times now, is shade in this hexagon shape to show how important each factor was. So like we've discussed before, if you think profit was the most important, then you would shade that all the way from 1 to 8. If you thought control from Britain was only half the amount of profit, you know, it wasn't that important, then you would shade it from 1 to 4. If you think something doesn't exist, which we maybe discussed isn't the case with Africa, but if you still think it doesn't exist, then you can just go ahead and cross it out. Now, you can also show an extra layer of complexity here by maybe shading something in a different color if you think that it did exist, but wasn't Britain that was doing that thing. There's an example here now on the screen that you can use if you're still not sure what you need to do. Hopefully that jogs your memory. So everybody now, I need you to just do the shading on the hexagon for the time being. You've got 2 minutes. Pause the video now, shade in the hexagon, 2 minutes. Now, once you have finished that, you then need to decide which you think was the most important factor in Africa, just like this person has done here. Obviously, this one's about islands, not Africa. Now, you can see that it was quite easy for this person because they'd shaded profit more than any others. So it was quite clear. If you've shaded 2 the same amount, I want you to be definitive and pick the one which you think was the most important. Just pick one. Once you've decided which one you think, you're then, again, like we've done before, going to explain underneath why you think that one was so important. So you can see here, this person's written, I chose profit because it was of significant importance. They got that word from the table. Remember, you need to use 2 words from the table. For example, Liverpool made a major amount of money from slave sales and trades. They've used then some evidence from a story they'd read about Liverpool, and they've put that in their answer. That's, again, the sort of thing I'm looking for. Detailed facts need to be included. However, a large amount of importance goes to military power because they needed to help with the rebels, stop people rebelling. Again, they've used a word from the table there. They've adapted the word largely, but it's same sort of thing. Okay, so you need to use 2 words from the table. you need to use facts from the stories in your answer to explain why you think that one thing was the most important for Britain in its empire in Africa. Pause the video here. That should take you about 4 minutes, because it should be the absolute best thing that you do in this lesson, the thing you put the most effort into. Pause the video, do that now. Okay, and that is it from this lesson. Look out for my video for next week. I may well have Mila appearing again, and I'll have a new object other than my granddad's axe in the background to tell you about. Now, you also need to make sure that you go on and do the quiz, which is about this lesson, because that's how I'm making sure that you've done your work. Okay? See you next week.